So for this video, I wanted to do something a little bit different, and this is not just a castle video, but I wanted to take a look at a Lego mail order catalog. Now, this right here is my childhood. I would spend hours looking at this thing, and I could just look at it and circle everything in it every year. But this particular catalog is from 1992, and you can see right there, 92. And this was my favorite year. And so my original goal with this channel, and with my kind of getting back into Lego and collecting, was that the castle was my favorite of the Lego sets from the 80s and 90s. And initially I set a goal of, I want to just collect all of the 1992 castle. I wanted to kind of because I had lost all of my vintage sets from early 90s up until mid 90s. We had a couple of 80s sets, but mostly they were just early 90s sets. We had hundreds, just about all of them from that era, but they got lost, and I won't really get into the story. It's kind of tragic and sad, but yeah, so I really my favorites were from this year, 1992. So I wanted to dive into this catalog, kind of take a stroll down memory lane. So as you can see on the front here, you got this cool train coming out of the mountain from the town sets. And then you've got Space Police, introduced that year. Now Space Police has been introduced one or two times before in the 80s and I think just the 80s. So they reintroduced them in the early 90s. Also, you've got a new type of print for a Imperial captain or admiral or whatever from the Pirates line. And that was sort of a rare print. That both that face, both the hat is pretty rare, and that torso print. Those are all super rare. So we'll get into that as well. And then on my all-time favorite, of course, is the Black Knights from 1992. And you can see he's stopping the train. I guess he's that strong and formidable that he will stop a train. Anyways, that's such a iconic cover. I spent way too much time on the cover. My apologies. But again, take a stroll with me down memory lane. Here we go. Page 1. There's Jack the Lego Maniac. I do remember the TV commercials with some hip 80s music, even though it was the early 90s. And it kind of tells some things about warning parents, like, don't swallow these things. They're not for children under 3. They can wash by hand, in warm water. Don't boil them, obviously. And so Jack always had the middle sets, that you could hold with your hand, but that weren't tiny, but that were, good size. And so here are all the different lines of castle. Of Lego sets. Sorry. There's castle, there's pirates, space, town, boats, train, and model team, and technique as well. So the first page gets right into castle. That was probably the big thing of that year. It kind of tells about the castle factions. Hear ye. Crusaders. So no more is there line knights, there's just kind of crusaders from the early 90s. Even though they're sporting the line knights emblem and shield. Forcemen is starting to get phased out as well. And then Wolfpack is introduced, as well as expanding on the Black Knights. And this is the year that Black Knight's Castle was introduced. Now, if you'll notice, that year and several years that followed, it was always called Dungeon Master's Castle. So I'm not really sure why it changed or when it changed. I can't really remember. So if you have paraphernalia or a catalog or advertisement or a listing somewhere that you know of, or maybe you have the box or something that says Black Knight's Castle. Let me know in the comments, when you got that or what year that is or where you got it from. That's kind of interesting. But this was my favorite castle. We would always recreate not only the pictures, place the minifigures and stuff in the display or in the advertisement pictures, but we'd also try to recreate the displays, which were nearly impossible. But anyways, that's for another time. Also, the Sea Serpent was introduced, as well as the Black Knight. And they kept around some of the Black Monarch stuff as well that year. So that was the big castle thing of that year. Now, what an epic display. Oh my goodness. We've got this glowing ghost. There's Wolfpack Tower. And a bunch of them are running out. Lots of extra dudes. There's a bit of a river here, and you can see the Sea Serpent in the river. Then there's the Black Knight, standing guard. Somehow he's able to blockade the most largest of foes. Anyways, we've got that brick-built bridge thing there with the little plates, kind of stair-stepping up. That was so cool. I always tried to make that, but that didn't turn out well. You got some of those Christmas tree pine trees stacked in the back. That looks cool. It's a good dimension. And then you got the Wolfpack Renegades running over the bridge, trying to escape after they stole some treasure, with a bunch of the Black Knights chasing them down this pathway. There's another glowing ghost as well. Well, we would always try to recreate this scene, with them leaning over and shooting at them or pretending and stuff. Yeah, that was just... It's so good. Their display pictures are so amazing. We'll get into a bunch of those. And I'll try to not make this a super long video. But of course, Castle's my favorite, so I'm going to spend the most time on it. And as we stay in the bottom here, upstream, oh look, there's still a princess. So we'll get into that later, but in previous catalogs, the Forestmen actually capture her. So we'll get into that as well and explore. I guess this is what's the next chapter is. But there's a bunch of Forestmen kind of hanging out on the Forestmen's river fortress up there, upstream. So that's just an awesome display. Love it so much. So that year they still had on order, you could get Forestmen's Crossing, Forestmen's River Fortress. And of course, here's the Wolfpack section with just the tower and the Renegade's cart. And that was plenty that year to have. Here's a few more Crusader things left around. Dungeon Hunters was still around. You could order that. And King's Mountain Fortress. King's Mountain Fortress, I do not have, and will be collecting it. And that was one I never had and always wanted, actually. So we'll get into that much later on. Castle minifigures are still kind of pricey if you can find those used. Such a great display. I'm gonna go through the rest of the rest of the Lego sets. Pirates. This was a great year for pirates. Of course, in previous years, 89, 90, and 91, the actual Pirates line, most of those things had come out already. Of course, Black Sea Spirit of Judah, all those things. You got a couple things, Raft Raiders, Smuggler's Shanty, that came out that year. And this display we tried to create, we were never really sure how they could hang on the rope like that. I just always thought they did such a cool job with that kind of stuff. It's just, look how cool that is. Oh my gosh. And then for that year, for this year, 92, you have the Imperial Guards being the newest releases. You've got the new trading post as opposed to the El Dorado Fortress. You got this Imperial flagship, which it's a little small to call a flagship, but the sail was really nice. It was really cool looking. And it was a nice little ship, well designed. You've got that Admiral guy that I talked about. Well, he's not in any of these pictures, but he's way on over there. You got him. That was a pretty rare minifigure. If you got that one, hang on to it. Don't lose that one. But yeah, that's such a cool display. Those two were the big things from Pirates that year. Had both of those. Those were cool. Moving on, we got space. And in 92, you still had M-Tron sets you could order. Blacktron, that was sort of new, I think 91. We'll get into that in another catalog, another time. And then 92, like I mentioned in the cover, Space Police. They kind of revamped him, made him this green. They gave him like a little microphone, intercom, talk system print. That's pretty cool. That's very different. Nothing like that was printed before. And I always thought that was pretty cool with that red light and like the moon rocks, meteorites or whatever they're landing on. Kind of shows you how that can detach, and then you can put the prisoner cell in there and it kind of locks in there. Big ship, big things from that year was Space Police had a kind of a revamped big ship. That was pretty cool with two of those windshield things. I don't know what to call those. I had that one. That was a very, very large ship, I guess, for space. They hadn't really made anything that big. And then you've got this one that has big wheels, Solar Snooper, and then that kind of smaller one that you can stick a prisoner in, Rebel Hunter. And you can still order some M-Tron stuff, of course. Didn't have too many of those. We had a lot of them, but not this big one. We had all the Space Police. We had also all the Blacktron. I'll get to that a little bit later. But this year you could still order the Blacktron. It wasn't new. The new stuff was the Space Police. It's pretty cool. That's a really cool display. This is a year of a bonus pack. They've had value packs before. I don't know if they were all in the catalogs or not. In this value pack that year, you could get this race car, a little Blacktron set, a little pirate treasure set, and then this Black Knight's Guard. Currently don't have that one, but we'll be grabbing that soon. Here's some of the town stuff. Won't really talk much about town, but it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of the town sets. We didn't have boat sets, but that's a pretty cool display too. It's like a mountain pier. That's really cool. I like the way they utilized those Christmas trees. They don't look so blocky when you have that lighting. The lighting makes it kind of look more realistic. The shadow on the side. Yeah, a few new things that year. Let's see. There's another page of town. Not a lot of new large town sets that year. I think the big thing that year was really castle. That was those two big castles. That's a very busy scene. Sheesh, look at that. That race, checkered flag, something new. That's pretty cool. I like that one. Boats. A little bit of these and the boats line was they had these boats that could float. The whole bottom piece was just one big piece that could float on water for real. Those got ruined every time. We had this one for sure, and it's super brown. I don't know any other kid or friend who has these, who had those back in that day that they didn't get ruined. Even though they could in fact really float. They really could. So the big thing for town was more, I guess, not necessarily town, but the trains. They introduced two new trains. That's pretty nice. That's pretty sleek design. Didn't have these growing up. They were very expensive back then because you could, they were electric. You could really move them. But definitely, it's a cool, realistic design. Model team, that stuff's pretty realistic, really cool. It kind of holds up even to this day. It's really nice designs. Technique, weren't much into these. I do have some of these that are handed down. There's some more of them. Weren't much into these. Had that cycle, but join the Builders Club, receive a free mini set. That's cool. So you could fill that, tear it out, mail it in, send in a check, I guess, back in that day. Here's some building accessories. You could order base plates, brick separator, storage case, yeah, electric motor. You can build your own stuff. There's the idea book. I'm not sure when that came out, but it was apparently available for quite some time. Oh, you could order individual bricks, or maybe it's a pack of bricks, a certain amount. That's cool. I didn't really ever notice that before. Idea book, 9-volt battery box. Here's some small sets. It's kind of cool. Little M-Tron set, police 4x4, safari off-road. That's cool. That's a unique hat. You wouldn't see that very often. Order accessories, castle elements. You can order stuff by itself. Maybe if you lost a piece or wanted extra pieces. Decorative elements, you can, those got lost, so that's cool. Here's something called Paradisa. But yeah, there's these little sets. Seaside Cabana, a little stable, poolside paradise. I think we had this poolside one. That's pretty rare. Oh yeah, here's the order form to shop at home. You fill this out, tear it out, and then, they would accept Visa and MasterCard. I wonder when the first year was that they did that. Cool, mail it in. And then you could buy accessories too. Place plates. Let's see, back then, large plate, 10x10, $5. That's not cheap, because that's about what you can get now. Let's see, what are these? 10-inch, 15-inch? Doesn't say how much those are. But those are like 16x16 or 10x10. Yeah, that's a lot for the small one. That's not the 32x32. Wow. Anyways, not important, but there's those castle minifigs. That's a pretty rare set. But back then it was only $6.50. That's so weird. The base plates are almost as expensive as the minifigures. That's crazy. Anyways, get a few accessories. There's the pirate minifigs, space minifigs, town minifigures, a tree, and flowers accessories too. Anyways, that's so cool. This catalog, 1992. Again, that's probably my favorite year. And yeah, the one I could spend looking at the longest.